Hello and welcome back to another crop update. I wanted to do this crop update on the chlorosis again in the soybeans. I was listening to an agronomist from Pioneer talking about different things that are happening that are making the chlorosis really quite severe this year in the soybeans. And I noticed something when I was going through my fields. And I'm just going to show you just a little bit of a view here. Here's the edge of my field, and you can see this is a chlorosis spot, because as we see right next to here, there's chlorosis. And then when you go over to my side of the line here, there's something different happening. Now, sure, I've got soy green on it, but you've seen the problems I've been having with soy green this year. Here, though, is a real severe case of chlorosis as we look that direction. As you go off that direction, what I found on this field this year is it never turned yellow even. It stayed green the entire time, when all my other fields not only turned yellow, but had some of it in the severe areas had really had a hard time staying alive. So I thought, well, what have I done different on this field that I didn't do on the other fields? And while I was listening to that agronomist, it kind of clicked right then. The numbers of soybean cyst nematodes in the soil seem to get really high in those chlorosis areas for some odd reason. Don't really understand why. And my cyst number should be then high going through here, and normally the beans really struggle here in any other year except this year. The difference is I had corn on this 2 years in a row before I went back into soybeans. And that's what I was saying on that other field. I put corn on corn. I had checked my cyst levels 2 years ago, and they were quite high. So that's why I wanted to go back into corn on corn. I also was getting some disease pressures in there too. And so I thought, let's get corn on it for 2 years. I'm really glad I did, of course, this year. But if I can get the same result as 2 years of corn on a field like this coming back into soybeans, it'll have really paid off. So what I've been saying in the last videos about using corn on corn 2 years in a row minimum, especially on those IDC issue soils where they have a problem with that iron deficiency chlorosis, I think I'll be much better off in the long run, especially if the corn turns out like it is on that other field. Last year, I'd say the corn was pretty good here. I wouldn't say it was one of my top fields, but on the other hand, that IDC type soils, even corn can struggle in that in certain years as far as whether it hits a bumper yield or not. But when I took a look at this, I wished all my IDC areas looked like this. I mean, if this was similar to the other fields, this would be fairly burned down and yellow throughout this area. And as you can see, the beans are doing quite well. The plant health is really good. I'll come in here either putting on good pods. I didn't even seem to have the insect pressure I have on the other soybean fields that were just in 1 year of corn. And so right here, it's looking quite well. And so I just kind of wanted to point out this field. And I think I mentioned in my last video I was going to do that, because as you can see, this whole field here looks really good, which is normally a real problem, instead of, you know, looking real tough after just 1 year of corn like that. So I think I am onto something. I think I have to really just concentrate on those heavy IDC issue fields by putting them at least 2 years of corn before going back to soybeans. And I think that'll work out much better. So from from this year on, that's what I'm going to try to figure out, a nice rotational schedule like that. Let's go over to that other soybean field I was into on the first update, and we'll see how that one's come along. We haven't been there for a while now to take a video on that, so I'll just show you how that one's coming along. Now we're back into that same spot we were with the very first crop update. Has there been any improvement in the soybeans since then? Well, obviously, as we noted before, the tractor tracks looked good and look very promising. And as you can see, they're doing quite well. If it all looked like this, we'd have a really nice field on our hands. However, where there isn't tractor tracks, are they coming along? Yes, they're doing better. And I think we saw a few spots that were coming. But in your real tough areas, I mean, sure, we've got a plant and we've got flowering. I'll show you here. We've got a plant here and we got flowering going on, but we don't have a lot of potential on these beans making much right in this small area, which, you know, draws down your total bushels per acre when that happens. This spot here, I'll remind you, has 4 pounds of soy grain on it. It should have made it through. It should have done better than this. So this is one of those really tough years. I'm tempted to say it's got to be the toughest year I've ever seen for iron chlorosis. And the way it looks, we could be dealing with higher levels of nitrates in the soil, probably higher levels of cysts in the soil. However, it doesn't cover anywhere near, of course, the whole field. You know, it's going to be just in spots. So as we come over here, over so many rows again, between where the tractor runs, you know, I'll show you. You know, you're talking about a spot like this again. But that all drags down overall yield. However, if you look across the field, a lot of it is doing quite well. We'll walk down a little further here. And I've been very fortunate. The weed pressure has been very low, even though we don't have some of this canoping. But as we walk down into the low here, you can see how much nicer these beans are when you get away from those IDC soils. And so right here, we're looking at some very good soybeans. You know, very good potential, putting on lots of pods. You know, they're still flowering, doing well. There's a 1.6 maturity soybean. So, you know, if you look at the field from here, looks quite promising. But we do have those problem areas, those IDC areas that can drag it down. So that's the update on the soybeans. We're going to go over and we're going to take a look at the corn that I really like, that I was able to try this year, which is the Pioneer 9624. So I'm going to go over and we're going to dig out a stalk, see what that looks like now. Here's a stalk of that Pioneer 9624 that I've really been anticipating to see how that comes out. I was having a little tough time getting the roots out because it's so dry here and the ground is cracking up so bad that it just wanted to tear out on me. But the root structure overall, I mean, was very healthy and real good. I was trying to get a hold of another one that I thought was getting out of there a little bit better, and that one I could see a lot more of the roots without breaking them off. I'm really happy with the roots. I'm very happy with the stalk and the stalk strength on this one. Of course, I'm happy with the air placement and the height of the stalk. So overall, plant looks good, leaves look good, looks healthy considering their lack of moisture that we have. Unless we get a rain, you know, maybe have a little harder time putting on that extra test weight. We'll see. You know, if we get some rain, that's really going to help us out. But so far, I'm really liking what I see with this one. I like what I'm seeing with the roots as well. And as long as we're here, I guess, could just well take a look, see how the ear is developing as well. The ear is looking quite good. It didn't pollinate right to the tip. That means my population is probably, it could mean that my population has been good. Otherwise, it also can mean your fertility isn't quite there, or could have struggled a little bit in all the heat when it was pollinating. But otherwise, I mean, we got a decent looking ear there, you know, for the plant population, the moisture that we've had. Overall, I think that one's looking pretty well. So I'm quite pleased with the way that ear looks. We'll see how it sets in. Seems to have a fairly deep kernel. It's not a lot of cob in there. It's mostly kernel coming in. If it gets some rain, can add some test weight to that. I think you're looking at a pretty fair yield yet. So I'm gonna go to another field and I'm gonna show you another brand of corn I have. That's I have actually one there that's a semi-flex and a full flex. I think I'll take a look at that full flex and we'll see what that one looks like. We're gonna end this crop update by showing you the Hefty corn here, the Hefty 5055. It's a full flex hybrid. It's one of those you're not going to want to plant real thick. I did plant it at 34,000 just simply because I'm having some germination issues with the Hefty seed corn. And again, same thing this year. I'm glad I did because I had germination issues again. And so is the full flex here going to make up for some of that? That's what I'm hoping. Otherwise, overall, I like the corn as far as the height and the stock quality, the ear placements and so forth. That all looks good. I don't have any issues with that. Where I'm really having my issues is with their germination on their corn. And I don't know if it's just me or if it's just very few people, but you know, if you can't get the germination, you can't get the stalks out of the ground in the first place, you pretty much lost the battle on trying to grow corn. So that's really my struggles. I think we're still looking at a pretty fair yield. We are having some real dryness in this area. I've had a lot more moisture here than I have in the last field that it was at. But as you can see here, I was going to try to get kind of an open area you could see, but I could even point downward. You know, still that ground, as you can see, it's really cracking up just because of that dryness. Another issue I had with the Hefty corn, both this one and trying to remember the other number, 5512 I believe it is, I had a lot of green snap issues with it. So not only did the germination was a problem, but later on when those winds came along, a lot of green snap. I'm not even going to dig up the roots on this one. I know the root quality is really good on it. So overall, I still think it's going to come out well, but it certainly has some agronomic problems, and I don't think I'll be looking at this number anymore. I think I'm going to have to take a look at some different corns out there. And it all depends on, you know, how those Pioneer numbers are going to be yielding compared to the Hefty yields, and then compare that to the surrounding area and what some of their yield results are going to be. So a little bit dry here in western Minnesota yet, and we could certainly use some rain to finish off this crop and to fill out those pods and those soybeans. So that's it for the update for today, and try to get one more here, well, possibly at least one more before harvest comes along. So until then, have a great day.